This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Michele. Yo!
I know, that's what I said. No way. Michele, alcoholic. First of all, I want to tell you, I'm really nervous. You know, I don't know. I know. It didn't look like that the whole time I was coming up here every week for the last 52 weeks. But yeah, you know, the three fears of moving, speaking, or death. Right now, speaking's up at the top of my list. So, but anyways, it is a blessing to be here. Thank you so much, Josh, you know, that I'm honored to be your first speaker, and happy birthday, people, and all the new chip takers. You know, I'm really lucky, too. My brother came out, you know, and he was telling me he was going to maybe come out to the meeting, so of course I got on my knees and begged practically. You don't know that I was begging on my knees when you called, but I needed somebody here that I can blame. So he said that he would he said that he would show up, and I brought my friend Gene, my new boyfriend, and so he gets to hear all this smut, and now he's going to be judging me too. He's going to probably have to relook at the whole thing when we're done. So you know, I had the honor of being the secretary here for the first time in sobriety, and it teaches you how to show up in a different way, because when you're a secretary at a meeting, you identify with the speakers and you think that what they say is all about you, and it takes some time because we're so self-obsessed. We have to figure out that our job is just to get the speakers, and hopefully they show up, and if they don't, we manage with what we've got. And I was really lucky that everybody seemed to show up through the next 52 weeks, last 52 weeks. So good luck to you, Josh, on that. So I sent you the list, so hopefully they're good. So, you know, I'm first going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. But I'm going to start first with how I first got to AA. I found myself, you know, I didn't know what was wrong with me. You know, I'd find myself acting irritable and discontent and out of control on a daily basis, you know, and I found myself in a sex and love addicts meeting, you know, because I'm a member of many different programs, and I found myself there, and I met a guy, and he had what I wanted, and right, so you get it, yeah, and so so by the way, they call those kind of people predators, but hey, I was into it. And so after he promptly 13-stepped me, you know, and it was all his fault. So he took me to an AA meeting, and then he took me to a CA meeting, and he left me there. And you know, it's funny because I was at the Santa Monica Convention Center a couple years ago. You were there, Dave, right? That big party that they had, a sober January 1st, you know, New Year's party. And all of a sudden, there he was. And I was like, shit, there he is. There's that guy, you know, that 13-stepper, you know. And that's all I was able to do was, like, point the finger at him. And, you know, it's like, am I grateful or am I resentful? And, of course, you know, resentment was what I wanted to live in. But the truth is I'm still sober. And him dropping me off allowed that to happen, you know, because without somebody showing me the way, I might not have ever found the way. I used to drive by the Marina Center out here in the front, and I'd see all you drinkers, and I'd be like, look at those alcoholics, you know? Look at those alcoholics drinking coffee, you know? They are so weird, you know? What a bunch of losers, you know? And little did I know I'd be joining you soon thereafter, you know? One time, you know, way back when, my brother's been here longer than me. My little bro, you know, with the good-looking guy in the front. He's been here 19 years, and I remember I picked him up from jail one time, and he had robbed the same liquor store twice. I mean, you know, and he didn't even do it in the same, like, he did it 3 years apart. So I was like, who would rob a liquor store, get away with it, right? You're all free and clear, and then you go rob the same liquor store. So I end up picking him up from jail, and I bring him my boyfriend's clothes, and my boyfriend was about a foot shorter than him, so the sweats didn't quite fit. And I drove him home, and I'm like thinking, what a loser. Like, he's drinking. Why are you such a screw-up, bro? And little did I know I was doing the same shit you were, you know. And it's just, that's our family of origin got us here. You know, I don't know if I believe alcoholism is if we're born with it or not. But I could tell you, in my family, I have a dead uncle from alcoholism. I have a dead cousin from drug addiction. My dad wears a fancy bracelet given to him by the U.S. federal government. My mom's an Al-Anon supporter. And my brother has 19 years, and here I am. And, you know, that's, of course, only some of the immediate family. That's, you know, that's the family I come from. So so my story starts way back. You know, my dad, you know, when I went with him to get that bracelet, you know, I sat in the room, and the parole officer asked him, "How long have you been a drug addict?" And my dad says, "Oh, my whole life." And, you know, so all this time he's been lying to us, you know, telling us, no, you know, I'm not a drug addict, I'm not a pill popper, I'm not a drinker. And then the truth came out right then, because he's staring at the government, and he better tell the truth. And he was scared shitless. So, you know, I used to steal his drugs, you know. So way back when, I'm 12 years old, I used to take the pot out of his drawer, you know, the alcohol out of the alcohol bin, and of course there's pills to go with it. And, you know, it worked, because there was this girl that used to beat me up at school, you know, and I didn't know what to do, because I didn't know how to hit, you know. I was just a girl, you know, and she was the bully. And so I used to steal the pot, and then I'd give it to her, and we'd go get high before school and hide behind the fence, you know, and then we'd go to school, and we were friends all of a sudden. So you know, I just wanted to be liked, and I wanted to fit in. So that was my first experience with that. You know, one time I had taken my brother soon after that, and we had this dog house. We had Great Danes. So we didn't have the little dogs, because the little dogs weren't popular then. We had 2 Great Danes, and this dog's like 150 pounds, and he's got this tail that if you're near him, he'll whip you with it, you know. And I stuck my brother in his dog house, and I began blowing the smoke in the dog house, and my brother's like in the dog house, you know, and he doesn't know anything. He's 6 years old, you know. And of course, I don't know if I've made a formal amends, but here I am. I'm sorry, bro. Yeah, right. And so that liquor store, I wonder if I had anything to do with that. So, you know, so then I grew up, you know, through a group of kids, and we used to always, like, we had these, like, tournaments, and we'd fill these big gulps. We'd go get our big gulps, and we'd fill them with Bacardi, and I didn't know what was going on. So I was always, you know, kind of like, okay, I'll just do what they do. I'll just follow what they do. And we'd get so hammered, and we'd go in and go to our tournament, and then we'd do this again the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. 4 days later, we've got a 4-day hangover, and we're all bowling in this tournament. And I was like, this rocks, you know, and I was part of the group, and I was the in-group, drinking with the in-group. And, you know, it's like that statement of, I've arrived, you know, I found something and somewhere that I fit in, and the alcohol made it all okay. You know, at age 16, I met him. And he lived here in Santa Monica. So, you know, I was living over in Torrance growing up in the South Bay. And he lived in Santa Monica, and so did my grandmother. And, you know, my course with my family had run its course. My dad had lost his house, you know, for punching somebody in the nose. He's getting sued. And, you know, really had nowhere to put my head at night. So my grandmother, you know, it's free food, free home. And the guy that's the drug dealer lives over here. And of course, you know, I liked him. So it was really convenient that I came over here, and we immediately hooked up. I dated that guy on and off for 13 years, you know, and so he took me from, you know, I remember we used to go park down in Santa Monica when they had that old, you know, the new nice palm tree lane wasn't there. You know, it was just like a street. You parked there, and then you could walk down to the beach. And he would bring 1 Heineken and 1 joint. And I was like, wow, 1 Heineken, 1 joint. He's so romantic. Little did I know, the guy didn't have a job. He was borrowing his mom's car, and when I'd go sleep over at the house, he'd kick her out, and she'd sleep on the couch, and we'd sleep in the bed. And I was like, how cool is that? You know, I'm special, you know. So, and you know, through my dad, I'm the oldest of 13 kids.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I haven't told you about the rest of the drug addicts in my family, but you can imagine they're on their way. But the oldest of 13 kids, my direct parents only had 3, but my dad, you know, wanted to carry on his his heritage, so he made sure to cover that for the rest of the family. So I don't have kids. I mean, and you can imagine why. So yeah, I'm the oldest of 13 kids, and so where was I? The guy, the third, yeah. So anyways, my dad taught me, you know, a lot of negative things. He didn't teach me how to have any self-respect. I didn't like myself. I was always into self-abuse, you know. I'd make sure to go out with the meanest, most disregarding, most taking guy. My dad was really, you know, rich, you know, so he'd support me, and so he'd give me an allowance, and I had a credit card, and I was all set. And this went on until I was practically like 31, you know. So for the first, you know, I lived that hard, fast life when I was young. I had no responsibilities. Nobody really taught me love, and nobody taught me limits. And therefore, not love and limits, you run rampant. And so every time, you know, this boyfriend, he was mean to me, and I'd come running when he was available, and when he was not available and he was with the other girls, you know, I'd be kicked to the curb, and then he'd be single again, and he'd call me again. And, you know, with him, I progressed through my using, you know, of, you know, alcohol, always my first love. You know, I'm a what do you call it? I'm a classic blackout drinker, 14 years old, Mai Tai in Hawaii. You know, I'm on the trip where my parents are unsupervised. They send me with the kids. I drink a Mai Tai. The guy gives me the Mai Tai, and I'm flat out, you know, I'm like, where's the second one? You know, you only brought me one, and this is my first drink, and I blacked out because, of course, I sent him back to the liquor store. He wasn't even going to sit next to me if he didn't bring on the rest of the alcohol. So, so I'm a classic, you know, blackout drinker. And finally, with this 13, you know, on and off again relationship, I became a garbage pail, you know. Quaaludes. My day, what it would start with is like it'd be noon, right? And I'd wake up at noon, and I'd save the pack from the night before, and I'd start with like a line, and then I'd monitor it because it had to be 12 o'clock. You know, I couldn't start before. You know, I was going to manage this situation, and then it came to be about, you know, and then I'd start smoking my pot too, and then when it hit about 2 or 3, I'd start speeding up on the coke, and then when it hit like about 5, I could start drinking because I was going out that night, so I didn't want to be too drunk to wherever I was going. But I always drank before I left, because if I drank before I left, then I didn't have to buy as much alcohol there, and I'd be relaxed by the time I got there. So, you know, I was the classic, let me down a couple kamikazes, because, you know, I never went straight for the beer. I didn't start with beer. I always started with a hard alcohol. And when I got to where I was going, I was all relaxed. And so my drinking ended up in, and then when I would take Quaaludes on the way home, and then, you know, I lived by 7-Eleven, because I always made sure the liquor store was close by. And, yeah, so I could walk over there, right? And they had Nitol on the counter, and I ended up, like, night after night, I'd buy the Nitol. And soon they couldn't keep up with the stock that I was, like, buying from them. And it was like, you know, 2 Nitol is the recommended dose. I was taking 16, because I needed to make sure I fell asleep quick enough so I could start over again, you know? So, yeah, so I was definitely a trash can, pouring it all in. You know, when I moved here, also, you know, I moved into my grandmother's house, and my grandmother just passed away in August, and I lived there almost all the way to 31, and, you know, it was really horrible because this woman was like my soulmate in life. You know, she was my mom. She was the one that said no to me. She was the one that gave me guidance, and I would use in her house. I mean, I'd have sex in her house. You know, I'd play dominoes all night long, you know, because that's what you do on coke, right? You play dominoes all night long. and of course, I was going to win, you know, and if you didn't, we were going to have a fight. And she passed away in August, you know, and I was really gifted to be by her side at that time. You know, I held her hand, and I said to her, it'll be okay, and she passed with me sitting right next to her, and that was my living amends to her. I got to make that a living amends to my grandmother, and it happened before that, because I was with her through the whole time that she was reaching that point. So I move into her house, and, you know, I have this next boyfriend, and, you know, this is my first exposure to what alcoholism looked like. Him and I were together 4 years. I thought we were going to get married, and we would drink before we went bowling, and little did I know he drank a 12-pack before we left, and then we'd get to the bowling alley and we'd drink more there, and then we'd get a Magnum on the way home, and then we'd drink at his house, and we're in the middle of sex and he passes out, and I'm thinking, God, I'm not that interesting, you know. He doesn't like having sex with me. And I'd shake him, wake up, and he'd be sleeping. And it would have been okay, you know, if he was still functioning, but it didn't go like that. So, okay, sorry, bad joke. Okay, yeah. But you know, and then you know, so I think we're gonna get married, and he ends up, you know, going out one day. He calls me and he says, "I'm in the police station." And I'm like, "Why?" And he got busted for crack, and he's in a hotel holed up somewhere, you know, soon thereafter once he gets out. And you know, I had no idea about, you know, those kind of drugs. I mean, I used to go to parties as a young girl, and I remember the big mirror. Remember those huge mirrors? They were like your coffee table, and they would be like, it would be like a crust, the whole, and I'd be like, "I've got to leave this party. I can't be here with this stuff. No way, we got to leave," you know. And my friend and I would leave, and I know as it went on, if I didn't go to a party that looked like that, I was leaving. So, you know, it turned around, you know. So that was that boyfriend. But, you know, I was crazy. You know, you remember that '94 earthquake, or was that the year that it was, the big one? Yep. So my friend lives in Northridge, you know, right on the fault line. Okay, my normal night was, okay, after I told you we would start the alcohol, the pot, the Coke, and then we go out at night. So here we are, we go to the bowling alley, we bowl our league, it's from 9 to 12. 12 o'clock comes, our normal routine is go to the liquor store, get a couple more 12 packs, and go sit on the guy's couch. And we've got 8 of us, and we'd pass it around, you know, the alcohol and the drugs. Now, this is a condemned building, police line, you know. The bedroom is caved in. We can barely use the bathroom. The door won't close. And what do? We go in, right? We just go in. We just crawl under that police line. And he's like, "Dude, it's okay. We can go into my apartment. It's still standing, you know." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go too," you know. And yeah, we used to do that. And then we take a couple Quaaludes on the way home so we could sleep when we got there. And this is in the valley, driving home to West LA. So, and then, you know, after that, I met my first husband. My first husband and I mean, it was crazy. We used to drive all the way to Point Mugu and back, and one time we came back and we're having this fight. And, you know, I was really pissed off, so we're getting off the freeway, and I decided it would be a good idea to jump out of the car. And the car almost rolls and hits me, and, you know, and I'm screaming and yelling, and it's all his fault. And one more time, I'm finding myself in these really just, like, really drug and alcohol-related situations. I mean, whenever, the Coke always kept me drinking more. You know, I always drank a lot. I mean, I was the one, when we went to the Hawaii tournaments, I would drink the 151, and they would make the bets on me. They're like, "This girl can drink 151. $50 says she can drink more than you." And you know I did. You know I did, and I'd black out. But hey, that was part of the story. I mean, I would wake up in places and not know, you know, how I got there, and supposedly somebody put me into bed, and I was lucky if I still had my clothes on, you know. So it was really kind of a morbid and horrible existence. So, you know, that husband of mine, you know, he ended up dying in '08 in a motorcycle accident, and him and I had gotten divorced, you know, 8 months after we got together. And when we got divorced, or when we finally, he found me on the internet, thank God for the internet, and he wanted to contact me, and we got to do a living amends together. We both showed up sober, and we met at a coffee shop, and we both, you know, cried our hearts out. And that was the most amazing experience. The amends experience is an unbelievable experience, to be able to say you're sorry and have somebody hear you. And it's not about what you say, it's about the integrity behind it. It's not about what you get. What you get is the gift to be able to say it. And he also apologized, and soon thereafter he died in a motorcycle accident. So bless his heart, you know, may he rest in peace. So what happened to me is, as I moved forward, is I got taken into that first meeting and left there by my 13th stepper. And, you know, I'm friends with him today, by the way, so I guess a little bit or most of the resentment is lifted. But, you know, I came to the meetings, and I used to, you know, stay in the back. I would go to the meeting, and I'd stay in the back, and I'd get there late. I always got there late. And I picked a sponsor that was unavailable, because I needed unavailable, you know. And if they didn't return phone calls, that was a better thing for me. And if I actually made it, and this was when you had to use a payphone, you know, because I didn't have a cell phone, you know, I only had a payphone. Because I didn't have a job either. Remember, I still didn't have a job at this point. And so I had that unavailable sponsor, but I kept going to the rooms, you know, and then I found my way into another program, you know, for stoners, because I'm a stoner too. And then ultimately the softer, more loving program I find to be AA, and I'm an alcoholic through and through. I mean, I drunk on my first, you know, go around. So, you know, for my first 5 years of sobriety, I didn't really work the steps and didn't come to meetings. I mean, I was kind of one of those that hung around the outsides. And of course, I met him again in here, 11 months sober, and I married him. And he left me at 5. And you know, I finally was willing to look at my part, and got a new sponsor, and I started working the steps, and this daily 10-step thing. If you've ever heard of a daily 10-step, we promptly admit when we were wrong, and I got the pleasure of working with a fantastic sponsor that was like Nazi-like, you know, come here today, come here the next day, did you do it today? And I got to the point where I would pull over the side of the road and write my 10-step, because I was fucking nuts in the head. You know, I wanted to hate you. I probably anger management would have been good for me as well, you know. And, you know, one time with that ex-husband, I was so pissed off at him that I backed up my car, stepped on the gas, and rammed into the back of his car. You know, it was like Thelma and Louise style. I was so proud of myself, you know. His car was so fucked up, and I was like, yeah, I didn't care if my car was damaged. I was mad that I, like, hurt him, you know. I mean, I like to have that vindictive, angry feeling because it's all your fault. And, so, you know, for the first 5 years, like I said, I wasn't really working the steps. I was on the outskirts of the program. I only did my first third step, or fourth step rather, when I was 3 years sober. I found a trusted servant. I did not tell my sponsor because I had secrets. You know, I didn't want to tell my secrets. So I made sure to find somebody who once had told me she was in the program, and she knew some things about me, so I felt a little safer that I could tell her. So I pulled her out. She worked at like one of these like clinics, you know, and I went to the clinic, and you know, you're like, what if I get pregnant, and what if, and you're like in there telling them all your stuff. So she already knew the smut on me, you know, and she came over to my apartment. We did a thorough fifth step. And that was at 3 years sober. And then at 5, my husband left me, and I was emotionally still bankrupt. And my next sponsor helped me through that 10-step, and I worked through a lot of that, you know. And then what ended up happening also in that 5-year marriage, I went and volunteered at a local community center for free, because I didn't know how to work. I didn't have work skills, didn't go to college, because alcohol was more important to me. I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up, you know. I used to, and my mom said, how can you be a doctor? You're afraid of blood and needles. And I said, I'll work it out, you know. And so I got a job at a local community center. They later hired me, and my goal at that time was I want to make $10 an hour. I really need to make $10 an hour, and if I make $10 an hour, I'm fucking awesome. It's awesome, you know. I'm gonna feel so proud of myself. And one day they said, you want to be our community outreach person, and I'm like, hell yeah. So I got my own business card, I had my own desk, and I was making $10 an hour, and then somebody asked me, do you want to come work in our law office? And I was like, I don't know how to do anything like that. You know how to work in a computer, don't you? You can answer a phone, right? And I used to come, and they used to scream at me every day, and they said, just keep showing up. And I'd heard that before. You guys told me to keep showing up. And so I just kept going. I kept going, and I've been doing that now for 10 years. You know, sobriety looks good. I was from a family that supported me, never was self-supporting, had no self-worth, no self-esteem. I had no God in my life. You know, the steps, I thought, you know, like I've been to Dr. Bob's house, and you know they have 12 steps to get into the house. And so I always thought the steps were like, you know, you're going to walk up the steps and you'd be there. But, you know, obviously the steps are on the wall here, and I hope you guys follow them. You know, they're all in this book. You know, so today I've got a job. You know, I work with others. I have a couple girls that I sponsor, And I have a sponsor, and I call my sponsor and I talk to trusted servants when I need to about I run things by them, because left to my own devices I make the wrong decisions. I act out of self-serving. I'm impulsive. I don't pause when agitated, and my new boyfriend, the cute guy in the second row, he's teaching me. He's teaching me about myself. He lets me work the steps with him. He has more time than me, and it's really amazing, because as in anything, there's a struggle, but we have this ability to just talk through it, and yeah, of course, at the end I'm crying because I'm a girl, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe that happened, and it's all dramatic like it can be, but it's nothing like it was. I haven't yelled at him once. I haven't called him any bad names. He hasn't yelled at me. Nobody's hit each other. Nobody's ran away and saying, I'm never going to talk to you again. And these are all things that the first thing that I do is if you're mean to me, it's like, fuck you, I hate you, because I'm going to push you away and make sure, to get rid of you early on, And so, this morning, I dropped to my knees and I thank God for my sobriety one more time. And this is, and at night I follow page 86, I review my day. And Mickey talks about G-O-D, the gift of desperation. And when I got here on that first day, hell yeah, I was desperate. I was fucking desperate, because I found myself doing the same old thing one more time, and there was no solution, and I was only left there with myself, The geographic to go have New Year's Eve in Arizona, I thought, hey, this is going to be a good place for New Year's Eve. And I was there in a room all by myself, in a child's bed, because the partiers are outside at the party, and I'm hiding in the room going, oh my God, I can't go out there. I can't go out there. And I am desperate, and I'm desperate today, I feel that gift of desperation every day. Every time there's a conflict, every time there's something good, every time I just wake up and, oh my gosh, I woke up and I'm in my own bed again, in my own apartment, with my own cat, and I get to reach out to others. I'm so fucking blessed. I'm so blessed, my whole cell phone, I've got like 300 numbers in there, and they're all you guys, not everybody in here, by the way, mostly a lot of the girls, but it's all AA, I have AA in there rather than just, it's not the drug dealer. Remember back in the day, the drug dealer, you wouldn't have him in your cell phone anyways, because you had to go to the payphone, and you had to stand there and wait by the payphone until he called you back. And now we've got cell phones, thank God, because now we'd be like, we'd have 10 drug dealers in there calling them all, and which one's going to answer first. And so, I don't have to do that anymore. Today, those 13 sisters of mine, 4 of them are 18, 17, 15, and 14. Tomorrow, Friday, is their senior prom. I'm a single woman, self-supporting. I get to get my little sister's hair done and her nails done. I bought 2 of them prom dresses. And I'm not anybody's mother, but their mother is also a drug addict. She's been in jail 6 times since January. And she can't stay sober, and I stopped worrying about it. They live close enough. I show up for them. Do you need a ride? I'll give you a ride. How's your school? What can I do for you today? They cry, and they're like, sorry, thank you, sorry, thank you. They're in foster care. They're in foster care because my once rich father that supported me is a gambler as well, and he can't hold on to a dime to his money. And he makes that narcissistic choice that it's all about him and not about them. And as a big sister, I get to mother them as a big sister and tell them what to do, because kids need to be told what to do, and I need to be told what to do. So my life has given me all the gifts that I could ever ask for, And, back to this meeting, standing up in front of a group of people, it's very nerve-wracking, It is, and I come up here with my notes. Look, I have notes. I didn't read off of them either, so I guess that when you get to talk all about you, it's not as hard as we think it is. Right? It's all about me. Yay. I always hear that. They're like, you get to talk about your favorite subject. And I'm like, it is my favorite subject. I could talk real fast and hold the conversation and never listen to you. But the reality is when we're into the self-obsession and we don't play it forward, it's about the giving and not the receiving. And, I just tell you, God works in my life today. My God is not my father anymore. My God is my higher power, as I choose to call him. And he's there for me. He wants wellness for me, best wishes, and gifts and grace. And there's everything available if you stay sober. You just got to come here one day. I'm sober right now. I'm sober today. You guys are here today. And that's the biggest gift we're given. I cannot tell you. I told Gene my story today, and he said, "That's how you were? I don't know anything like that about you. That's not the person that I know." And that's the good news. Anybody that meets me today, they never know that person before. That person's like a blackout, you know. I remember I was telling somebody about my high school boyfriend and my prom, and I went with him for 4 years, and my friend said, "You and Rocky, you know," because, yeah, Rocky was my boyfriend. And I said, "No, I don't even know if we slept together. That whole 4 years is a blackout, you know." And really, my life before sobriety is a big blackout. And my life now, yeah, I might not know what I had for breakfast this morning, but it's not a blackout. I'm present, you know. If you call me, I'll call you back. And so I'm really glad I get to participate in my sobriety. I obsessed about this day since I got the commitment last year. So in 51 weeks, Josh. So, I'm really happy we have a great new secretary, and I'm really happy to share my story with you and thank you for letting me participate in my sobriety.